Good day, everyone. My name is Letty Swank, and I work for the co-op. Welcome to our webinar. I'd like to introduce you to Deneen Jimerson, who is a homeschooling mom to a 14-year-old daughter for 7 years. She is also the Director of Education for NearWorld, our sponsor for this webinar. NearWorld works with homeschoolers and educators around the world to implement stories, games, and hands-on activities to enrich reading, math, STEM, and social emotional learning. So I'm going to turn it over to Deneen, and thank you again for joining our webinar.
Thank you, Letty. Is my microphone working okay? Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Just making sure with Zoom, sometimes, I don't know, I have to unplug and plug in my headset a couple of times. Anyways, welcome everybody, and thank you again, Letty. It's a pleasure to be here, and we're really excited to spend some time chatting with you about using play and homeschool. And again, feel free to jump into the chat. I want this to be really interactive, and you all are the experts as well, sharing ideas with each other and asking questions if you have any. So let's see, there we go. All right, so again, as Letty just mentioned, my name is Deneen Jimerson. I've been a homeschool mom for my youngest daughter, who is Carly. This is a picture of her when she was little. She was like 7. She didn't want me to share a 14-year-old picture with you. For about 8 years now, she is going into 9th grade, so we are very excited about that. And we're also very excited to connect with you all via the Homeschool Buyers Co-op. I've known Letty for several years and worked with her on quite a few projects. So yeah, we're very excited. So I'll go ahead and just kick off. I'll keep checking the chat every once in a while just to make sure there aren't any questions. I see everybody's introducing themselves. Yes, thank you. Awesome. Again, the topic today is play. And I know that as homeschool parents, I don't know if we have any homeschool dads with us, but we are very familiar with playing and just parents in general, the importance of play for kids. And I know that we spend a lot of time playing with little kids, and sometimes the big kids don't get to play as much. So I'm a huge advocate for big kids playing too. Playing is a serious business. So part of my job and a lot of the work I've been working on is around introducing different ways to play, like if whether you want it to be intentional or just free play, but providing opportunities for kids to work on different skill sets or different concepts through play. Lots of times I used to be a classroom teacher too, that kids picked up things much quicker. And again, I know you probably already know this, but just kind of like giving you a background, that kids pick up so much when they're playing, lots of times much quicker than they do if they're, reading or reading about something or, doing a more traditional type schoolwork. So huge advocate for play. And as I just mentioned a minute ago, and I'm sorry if it gets a little loud in the background, I hope you all understand as homeschool moms, but I do have my grandson with me today, although I'm not watching him, but he's 5 months old. So we'll try to keep him quiet. If it gets a little loud, I'm sorry. As I just mentioned, play is powerful. Again, just speaking from personal experience, my homeschool journey has evolved over time. In the beginning, I was more worried about making sure that everything was covered. But as we've moved through our journey, our evolution as a homeschool, we've come to be a lot more relaxed about the power of free time, the power of playtime. Again, even as my daughter is older. So huge advocate for the power of play for any age, even adults, including adults. So one of the questions that I get asked a lot is it play what kids naturally do? And yes. But part of the power of what we have as a homeschooler is that we can intentionally create playful spaces for our kids. We also need to make sure that we're encouraging play and that we're setting up time to play. Again, as a homeschool mom in the beginning, I was very structured as I kind of was in the classroom. I mean, not super structured, but I had like, okay, we're going to do reading now. We're going to do math now. We're going to do science now, which is totally fine. But, you know, I kind of forgot the time for my daughter to play. So it was, and my daughter, honestly, that's why I took her out of traditional school, because she didn't, you know, do well in traditional school like situations. And so I was just kind of like doing the same thing at home, which wasn't necessarily good either. But once I made sure that we kind of changed things to more play-based in nature, and I intentionally set space for her to play in ways that might lead us towards reading or lead us towards writing or math or whatever it is that we were trying to cover, things became a lot more relaxed. So that's kind of a little bit what I'm going to be talking about today, as well as specific ideas of things you might do if you're not already at home with your kids, and give you all a chance to share with each other ideas for creating playful learning with your kids that you've done. So as you know, and again, a lot of these things I'm sure you already know, just covering the bases, especially when people would ask me, you know, like my parents or some other family members or friends, you know, like, what are you doing? Yeah, you know, it looks like she's just playing all day. And I'm like, yeah, that's right, you know, but there's a lot of research on the benefits of play and all of these points here, you know, that it sparks curiosity. You know, kids and adults need time to dream. They need time to explore their individual interests, creates joy, you know, because we need a lot of that. We need happiness. We need things that we're doing during the day to inspire happiness and sense of well-being. And also play helps develop empathy. Again, something else that I know a lot of us are aiming to do with our kids. Learning how to compromise, building stamina, you know, if you're doing something that's really difficult and building that stamina to keep persevering until you figure it out. And the exploration of uncomfortable feelings, which is really, it's uncomfortable. So if you're using playful situations to go through those types of things, there's a lot of research that supports the benefits of play as they relate to all of these pieces, as well as, you know, reading, math, science, social studies, you know, whatever learning concepts and skills that you're trying to introduce with your kids. So I'm going to move on next to intentionally creating playful situations for your kids. Again, we want that time for open play, for them to choose what they're going to do with their time, to play dolls or to go outside and, you know, dig in the yard or whatever it is that they want to do. But sometimes during the day too, we want to be sure that we're creating playful situations with an intentional outcome, or at least an intentional lead towards an outcome. And when I say that, I mean, you know, maybe we want to work on writing. Again, using writing as an example, because my daughter, you know, really struggled with writing. Like, that was not what she wanted to do in any way, shape, or form. Like, trying to get her to write anything was rough. So one of the things that's really helped is creating those playful situations where she's writing for fun. Like, she's not writing a 5-paragraph essay or a 5-sentence paragraph or whatever the case. Yeah, Keely, I get it. Like, it's so frustrating because, like, I knew I wanted her what I wanted her to do, and maybe it was like something as simple like just answering a couple of questions, because I didn't want her to feel overwhelmed or struggle. But you know, we all know we kind of need to know how to write just to be an adult or just to be a teenager. So I was really worried about it. Anyways, we're going to talk about some ideas about how to intentionally create playful situations like that with those types of goals, you know, for things that, whether our kids struggle with them or not, either way is okay. But again, just having some ideas and sharing with each other ideas for those types of situations and goals as well. So here's an example of one way to set up a playful situation. I'm calling these Playful Situations 101. And again, please feel free to jump in and share ideas that you've had, that you do with your kids. This one's pretty basic, but, you know, just surrounding everybody, the room or wherever your space, wherever you're you're playing and working on schoolwork, with blocks, with paper, with markers, with play money, with play food. Again, that's more for little kids. For bigger kids, paper, markers, again, sticky notes. And I know you know this, kids love sticky notes. So you can even get, lots of times you can even get the cheap ones at the dollar store, because even though they don't stick as good, they still work for whatever it is that you're doing for the day or whatever. You can reinforce them with tape. Books, of course, we all know books. How-to videos, huge with my particular learners. She loves how-to videos. We'll watch how-to videos about how to do anything. I'm just reading the notes here. Yes, and I am so excited that they're making standardized tests less important for college. I am so excited about that. And they might be asked to write more with essay questions. The good news is just, trying to scaffold their way towards being able to do that, because again, I'm kind of digressing here, but not everybody's ready to write, a 5-paragraph essay by the time they're 12 or whatever age they do it in school. Some might do it sooner, some might not do it till they're 15. But, whatever their goals are and their aspirations, as long as we're leading them on that journey with practice in a way that makes sense to them, and usually play makes sense, then that's good. I agree. I'm so excited about the standardized tests being less important for sure. Also, 3x5 cards is an excellent example. These kids are just outside playing with mud. So that's always fun. And again, if we're studying science, obviously outside is a good place to start with nature and with water, with the elements or whatever it is that you're trying to play with. When I was a teacher in school, again, sitting around talking about the elements, water, earth, all those kinds of things, wasn't as interesting as actually being out in it. Again, I know I'm preaching to the choir. You guys already know this. But anyways, basic playful situation 101 is just having everything kind of there and ready. Doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be fancy, just, make it happen. Playful situation 2, and again, these are broad, and then we'll go into more specific examples shortly. Using a lot of what if and I wonder questions around what you want them to kind of focus their learning on. So like in this case, you might give them a challenge. Like, I wonder if we can find a way to use numbers today when we go play outside, and let them come up with an idea. Hopscotch is a good example, or maybe they just want to count things if they're little, or maybe, they want to go to the store and use their calculator or practice like that. But using a lot of what if and I wonder questions that are very open-ended, and letting them explore and inquire, leads to a long ways of learning for sure. The last broad situation example that I'll present is open-ended challenges, which I kind of led into with the last idea. Again, trying to create situations where there's not one right answer. So an example might be, how can we make a tent using things we have in the house? And there's lots of different ways, obviously, to do that. Great engineering project, for little ones or big kids. And there's tons of things like that you can do with the kids. Again, whether it's just practicing critical thinking and creativity, or if it's specific to math, like you might pull out a whole bunch of change, quarters and dimes and nickels and pennies, and say, how many ways can we make $1 using this change? And then, play a game trying to figure out all the different ways you can think of to make $1 with a change. And that, again, as you know, is reinforcing decimals, as well as real life skills with money. So there's lots of different things you can do that are awesome examples of play. And we might not think of them as play, but they're kind of, very different from more traditional ways of working with kids in the classroom. A lot of times, and again, I'm going back to my years as a teacher, we spent a lot of time with our kids, especially on standardized tests, where there was like one right answer, and life just isn't that way. So I know that's another reason why I started homeschooling, is I wanted to prepare my daughter to be able to handle, being able to make a decision and knowing that there might be more than one right answer. And that's okay. That's a good thing. And one of the reasons why that came to me is I was working on a standardized assessment. That was my job for a district in Colorado. And we came up with these awesome examples, similar challenges to these, where there was more than one right answer. So like the little kids did great, they didn't have any problem coming up with different answers and solutions and possibilities. The bigger kids really struggled. I got a lot of email from the high school kids saying, oops, this isn't right. I'm going to go ahead and leave my screen here, but they would email me and they'd say, you really need to settle this so that there's just one right answer. Like they were really struggling with there not being one right answer. So I know, again, as homeschoolers, that we're all interested in those types of experiences for our kids, and giving them the opportunity to explore those kinds of challenges are really fun, and I believe very useful for being a teenager or a grown up, or just somebody in society right now. So, and thank you, Deborah. Yes, COVID has made homeschooling even more practical than it was. And I know there's a lot of people moving towards homeschooling than maybe, 10 years ago when I started moving towards homeschooling, or however long you guys have been homeschooling. A lot more people are moving to homeschooling now, which is very exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and go into some specific examples now. And again, please feel free to share. We will just be talking about some ways to do different things with things around the house. I'm not a big fan of going out and spending tons of money. Well, I would love to. I can't go out and spend tons of money at learning stores and teacher stores and whatever to have like a game just to practice counting money and a game just to practice metrics or something. So these are all ideas with just easy things that you can do with things around the house, and not spending too much money and too much time setting up. Because that's another thing. We only have so much time in the day. And while we would all love to spend many, many hours, and most of us still spend many, many hours setting up our day, planning our days and our weeks and our months with the kids, less is always better if you can, so that you can spend more time doing other things too, and being balanced. So, yeah, I see the situation. It's awesome. But I agree. If I had little ones, it would make me very nervous right now too, for sure. Well, even with a 14-year-old, I get it. Yeah. So let's go ahead and move on to some ideas of some specific things you can do with specific learning outcomes. So one thing you can do is you can work on math and measurement with something like rice or beans or beads. Like it doesn't have to be food items. It could be little plastic beads or anything, so that kids could just kind of free play experiment with, filling different sized containers or building make-believe roads or mazes. So the little kids can experiment with all those kinds of things, like guesstimating, if I have this little container and I have this big container and I have this amount of beans and I put it in the little container, can I predict how full it's going to be? Why does it look more full in a little container than a big container? Those kinds of things. Also a good place to add your I wonder questions. Practice the I wonder questions with your kids while you're doing these types of experiments. Yeah, or just using Legos for fractions. Thanks, Laura. Exactly. Like all these things we have around that we can just play with, and again, have very specific. I keep clicking when I don't mean to click. Have very specific ideas or situations where we are, there we go, I'm going to catch us back to where we were, of working with specific learning outcomes. Now, with bigger kids, you can take these same beans and containers or rice or whatever, and you can actually calculate volume, weight, measurements. You can have them create charts and graphs and maps to show what they see. Yeah, playing with big kids is much more difficult. Your son is 14, Aubrey. Yeah, same as my daughter, who's 14. So sometimes, just as an example, I'm kind of going off script again here. But what we might do is we might take our Uno cards, because she loves to play Uno. I don't know if your son loves to play Uno, but she loves to play Uno, and we'll just make up a different game with the Uno cards. So while that's, we might say you have to add the cards together, you have to multiply them, or you have to divide them, or whatever. And then you have to something. Anyways, we'll just make brand new rules. And then, that's a good idea, Deborah. You can cook. Cooking is always good. Now, my 14-year-old doesn't like to cook. She's like good if she can put something in the microwave. But a lot of 14-year-olds do like to cook. So that's an excellent way to work on fractions, on measurements, on math. Older kids, board games, like I said, Uno right now is just a favorite. We play Uno all the time. We play Uno so much that I'm Uno'd out, honestly, but we keep playing anyways. Another thing we do with older kids, again, I'm a little bit going off script here, but is that, so she's a big fan of several bands, like music groups. And so what we do is we take the lyrics, and we write them. So again, that's an idea of, how to encourage writing for somebody that doesn't really like to write. But if I ask her if we write the lyrics together, and then look for rhymes, look for alliteration or other figurative language, examples of figurative language in the lyrics, that's usually fun. And we also sometimes change the words. Like we'll say, what if we took all the nouns and changed them to food, in the lyric, and just kind of make it funny. Or we change all the verbs to action verbs or something. I don't know, but we just kind of like try to do those too. Rhymes for hip hop, like on TikTok. Yeah, you can find tons of stuff. My daughter's a huge K-pop fan. I don't know if any of you are familiar with K-pop, but she's a huge K-pop fan. So we usually spend the last 30 minutes every night before we go to bed watching K-pop videos together, which is like BTS. I don't know if you're familiar with BTS. They're really popular right now. They're in like Samsung commercials. So they've kind of hit mainstream. But anyways, we do lots of things with writing that way. Also reflection, which I'll talk about in a minute. So yeah, those are just some ideas of one idea of specific things you can do with little kids and big kids towards intentional learning outcomes. Another specific example in literacy is communication. So creating opportunities for reflection. Now, when I say reflection, a lot of us spend time reflecting with the kids. Like we'll have them write a reflection after they read something, or we'll have them write a reflection after a science experiment. I'm just coming up with ideas of things I used to do as a teacher and the other. And we would, but what we might not do is we might not ask them to communicate, what they found fun or not fun during the day. So if you really want somebody to communicate with you, to practice communicating, that is a really good way. You might not want to hear what they have to say because you might have spent like hours preparing something that you thought would be really fun to do, and only to find out that they really didn't like it. But anyways, you can, with little kids, you can practice with smiley faces, like the picture I have here. With bigger kids, you can have a reflection journal where they can just write about, really quickly write down a few thoughts about what you liked or didn't like about math today, or what you liked or didn't like about our trip to the grocery store, or whatever it is that you did. And it'll really build some writing skills pretty quick. Like a lot of, I'm going to use my daughter as an example. She's not a strong speller. I don't know why. All the kids are different. Everybody's different. So one of the reasons why she doesn't like to write, and especially when she was younger, was that she didn't like trying to figure out how to spell words. So, you can always give them, look it up on the computer or look it up in a dictionary, but, that gets tedious. If you feel like you have to look up every other word, that's a struggle. So, lots of times what I'll do, depending what the purpose is of her writing, is if she needs help spelling a word, I'll just help her. And I found that just by helping her and not making her look up every single word she doesn't know how to spell has gone a long way in improving not only her spelling, but in her willingness to write. So again, just another thing that I noticed. Let's see, Laura added that we've added music enrichment to our lunch. Nice. And listed a different classical composers. That's fun. That would be a great thing to reflect on too. Again, with happy faces or with actually writing a few sentences, or even recording something. It doesn't always have to be writing. It could be a verbal recording, or it could just be talking about it. You don't have to record it, obviously, but sometimes the kids like to record themselves and listen to themselves. And that encourages communication too. But if you just talk about it too, obviously, all these communicative practices are really important and go a long way towards improving not only day-to-day skills, but their school skills too. So the last ideas that I'll share with you is around the idea of creativity. So kids, everybody is super creative. I know sometimes as adults we grow up. I used to work for somebody who is a children's author, and when he would go into a room full of kids, he noticed if it was little kids, he would say, how many of you are artists? And like everybody in the classroom would be like, me, 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 me. And he noticed that when the kids got to be about 8 years old, that when he would say, how many of you are artists? Only about half of them would raise their hands. And he, thought that was really sad. So a lot of times when he's out talking to people, especially adults, he'll really encourage them to, embrace their creative side and their artistic side, and that everybody's an artist, really. Like when we're 5, we all think we're artists. And when we're 8, apparently half of us think we're artists. And when we're adults, probably, if we're lucky, one person in the whole room might raise their hand and say, I'm an artist. So we really need to improve our opportunities as adults, as well as our kids' opportunities for creativity, I believe. So one thing you can do is encourage the kids to make toys out of, just everything's around the house again. I'm talking about recycling or just reusing things over and over again, empty boxes, paper towel, tubes. Give them a building challenge or a toy challenge. Like there's so many things you can do with things around the house that they can just create something with. And again, that's very much going to apply not only these skills like creativity and critical thinking and problem solving, which are very important, but they'll also encourage, real life math skills, real life literacy skills, science skills. So, if you try to build something that floats, for example. But anyways, it can be really loose. It doesn't have to be a prescriptive thing. They'll come away with a lot. Of course, there's clay. We all are big fans of clay. I don't know about you. I'm not a big fan of glitter, but some people are. Same thing with slime. We went through our slime years, and I'm really slimed out. We still have slime on the ceiling in some spots. 99-cent store watercolor sets are awesome. Yeah, because you can do a lot of things with those, and the kids like them, and they're not too messy. Well, it's always going to be messy, but some things are messier than others, like glitter. For outdoor play, you can save large branches and rocks, that they can practice building things with, or they can write in the dirt, or they can, just do different things with. So outside play, that's pretty easy. Also, for older kids, don't forget using books. So if your kids are reading a book that they really, really like, and one way to encourage not only creativity, but maybe some writing skills is to ask them to create a new character for the book. Like, okay, so who are the main characters in the story? And it can be little kids too. It doesn't have to be just big kids in a chapter book or anything, but it could be a storybook. But say, and we could just talk about it. We don't have to write about it. It just depends what your learning objective is. But you could say, who could be a new character for the story, and how do they interact with the other characters? What is their place in the storyline, and have them, just create a whole new character for the story. That's another way that you can, well, it's not like what we usually think of as play, maybe. It's very playful in nature and an interesting way to have kids explore not only the parts of a story, but, creating characters, exploring character traits, writing, potentially talking, acting them out. Could be a reader's theater situation where everybody's taking turns reading a different part of the story, a different character, and then they create their own with their own dialogue. That could be really fun. A different ending for the story. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, exactly. All those things are really, really interesting and different than maybe what some of us are doing. I know I'm just speaking from experience because I've gone through the whole evolution of being a micromanager because I was scared and I didn't want my daughter to fail. I didn't want my daughter to be 14 and not be able to read. But guess what? She can read. And I didn't have to spend time, doing phonics with her every day. We played a lot and figured it out. Also, I want to point out, I think it was Keely, let me go back up, said something about chalk. Yep, sidewalk chalk. Excellent idea. Even big kids, again, like to play with those kinds of things. Maybe 14, I don't know. It depends who's around. My daughter will go in the garage and do little kid stuff if the garage door's shut. So it depends who's in the neighborhood and who's around. But yeah, definitely. Using text from a fiction book is a great idea, like so many different ideas. Play role online with friends. Absolutely, Michelle. Yeah, that's how my daughter started really reading, is interacting with some of her friends, online chatting, texting, or I guess they don't text, whatever they do. But anyways, talking on the computer with her friends is how she really started to write and read too. That was a very good incentive for her to be able to communicate with her friends online that way when she wasn't with them in person. So anyways, those are just some ideas. And thank you again for sharing your ideas today. We still have plenty of time to chat, I believe. Okay, yeah, it's about 12:30 my time. I'm in Colorado, by the way. We will have time for questions and answers, and again, just sharing some more. And I'll let Letty join in here, I think.
Yes, great.
Yeah,
well, thank you
you
so much, Deneen. That was
Thank
great.
you. Thank you.
I'm just sad my daughter's 23.
I know.
So,
I know.
Yeah. So anyway, please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. And I do have a couple questions that are relevant and some things we didn't talk about in the presentation. So one thing is that a lot of kids play online games, Deneen. So especially older kids and teens. And do you have any advice on how much the day, based on the research you've read?
Sure.
That kids that are older and teens should be playing those games?
Sure. So I know everybody has different opinions about this, and I like to respect everybody's opinions because I know every family is different and everybody has different goals, for how they want to spend their days. So a lot of the research that I've read about play-based learning, one of the authors' names is Peter Gray. Now he's pretty unconventional in his ideas, but in his research, he's a psychologist, I think. I should know that. He's a psychologist, but he's done a lot of research on play-based, on play, like serious play, like not just I'm going to set up play situations and rotate you around, to play different stations. It's like, what? You just spend your day doing what you want to do, and for 8 years of your life, and let's see how you turn out, right? Because there's a lot of places that a lot of parent unschooling, right? It's very similar to unschooling. And he has found in his research, which I find very interesting, that, these kids turn out okay, that shifting the responsibility to the kids to learn through playing, through doing things that they want to do, through doing things that are interesting to them has brought about very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very not strong-willed, but independent, young people who go on to school to be lawyers and doctors and carpenters and programmers. I'm trying to think of jobs that are new because there's so many new jobs that are out there that we didn't have even 10 years ago as a possibility, to make a living. But he's found that these kids grow up and become all of those things just as easy as the kid, and go to college, go to med school. It's just as often as the kids that grew up in a more traditional school settings. So now back to your question, I'm kind of gone off the loop, but what he has found about video games is that, that some kids love to play video games for hours and hours and hours on end. And I didn't mention this, but I do have 4 kids. I have 4 children and a grandson, as I mentioned. And my children range in age from 34 to 14. So specifically, 2 of my children are huge gamers. They've always played a lot of online games. Since they were, young. We kind of limited, but they were in a more traditional school, so we kind of limited their time, but not really. It just depended on the game. Like, I was more careful of what game they were playing, especially when they were little or younger compared to when they were older. But I noticed that when they were playing these games, Zelda and whatever games they were playing back then, that it really did build stamina, built problem solving, it built creative thinking, it built a lot of things that I thought was useful. Now, again, this is just my opinion, and there's no right or wrong answer to this. But then my other 2 children, the 14-year-old and the next oldest one, they weren't really a big fan of video games. So, they'll play occasionally here and there, or my youngest one will play occasionally. The next youngest one is 28. She doesn't play at all, really. Her husband does, but she doesn't. She's got the 5-month-old. So anyways, it's really interesting. I think it just depends on the kid, and I think it depends on how you want to plan your days. I don't think it's going to necessarily harm anybody. Oh, one more thing I'd like to point out is that I worked in a school where it was an international baccalaureate school. So one of the end of the year projects was the kids would research something and then present have an exhibition of their findings, right? And so one of my students, I remember they were in 5th grade, and he studied by the video games, and he found out, at least in his research, and he tried to research everything, from the positive to the negative. And he really found his findings was that it was really an idea of balance. So, again, lots of people will play video games like every waking hour, which probably isn't good for anybody, right? We want to be balanced. But, some of them just really like games and some don't. But you can learn a lot from games too. So I don't know. I think it's very an individual decision. But the research points to that a lot of video game playing is not harmful. But that's just kind of what the research is saying.
Great. And then I see that Michelle has a good comment if you want to take a look.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just saw that too. So plays a scrap mechanic. That's so cool. Building cars and other machines. And they're going to tech school for auto mechanics. That's awesome. Yeah. Because all of the things you're learning from those things and those engineering concepts, is amazing. Like, anytime your child shows interest in those types of things is I can't even, it's just so exciting. I do have a nephew that's like that, but he's about creating things digitally. He's 13. He likes to create videos and write songs and record them. And, he built a YouTube channel that he plays around with. So anyways, there's just so many ways that kids can really be creative and passionate about their learning. And I guess it just depends on the kid and trying to follow their interests and their, how they want to spend their time as much as we can. And then sneaking all the other things in there.
Great. Okay. And then another question is, where can I find more ideas, about how to create play-based lessons?
Well, there's tons of great blogs out there. Anytime I just, if I'm looking for ideas, I just Google it, honestly. The companies that I've worked for in the past and work for now, that's a big focus for us. So there's always little things you can buy, obviously. But even if you just want to just Google, there's tons of blogs with really, really great ideas for play-based learning. I guess that's a good keyword, is play-based learning. Learning with Play. I told you about the one author, Peter Gray. There's several other authors that I don't read as much of, like one person. But yeah, there's tons of resources out there. Just Googling. Look, again, I'm a huge YouTube fan because I learned how to do so much on YouTube, whether it's, braiding my daughter's hair or it's like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Let me see if something's on YouTube. And I'll find videos about how to do pretty much anything, which is kind of scary sometimes, but it's a great resource.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
Are there any questions from the participants? Just before we wrap up. So
yeah, thank you, Cece. Thank you too.
Yes, thanks, Cece. Yes, thanks everyone for attending as well. Wait, here we go. We have some other ideas here.
Oh, great. Oh, good. Yeah, please. Oh, that's an awesome idea to write and self-publish a book. Yeah, there's lots of places you can do that for free. Did you find a free place to publish the book? I'm wondering, because I used to know of one, but now I'm blanking out on the name of it. You can self-publish a digital book, and then like if you want the hard copy of the book, then you pay for that. But they do comic books too, this particular place. And now I've lost my brain. You did it through Amazon? Yeah, there's another one that you can do it for free. And like I said, you can make comic books, you can make hard-covered books. I'll try to remember to share. We'll share it with Letty, and maybe we can send. I don't know. We'll figure out something.
Yeah, we'll send that.
You.
We have a follow-up email that will
go. Good. Okay.
So we can send that in there. Yes, that would be great.
Yeah, because I'm totally blanking out on the name of the program, but it's very cool because she could write, or if she likes to write books, she could write like 20 books, and it wouldn't cost anything unless you want to, print them, have them, printed and bound. But she can go back and access them and read them digitally and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of a cool program.
Great. Well, we do want to thank NeoWorld for hosting that webinar. And if anyone is interested in NeoWorld, we do have it on the co-op. And today it is a deal of the day. And you'll earn extra smart points. And for those of you who are familiar with smart points, basically, if you buy certain offers, we give you some extra points, and then you can accrue those and actually use it to put against future orders on the co-op. So anyway, thanks everyone. Deneen, that was just wonderful.
Thank you. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
It was really, really fun.
Have a wonderful day, and we will send the follow-up email, and hope everyone has a great day, and good luck getting started with the homeschool year. So
thank you. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.